At exactly 3:00 p.m., without a single sound or warning, the fundamental force of gravity simply switches off across the entire planet. A person mid-stride finds their next footstep never lands. You drift upward, watching a coffee spill break into perfect liquid beads that hang like glass in the sun, suspended by an absence you can't yet name. This suspension of physics will last for exactly 10 seconds. The clock has already started. Anyone not actively holding onto a fixed object immediately begins to rise. Because you and the objects around you are lifting at the same rate, the traditional sense of up and down vanishes. The street simply falls away beneath your feet. The silence breaks as drifting bystanders reach 6, 7, 8 feet of height. People flail in the thin air, frantically grasping for lampposts, door frames, or any solid edge that remains bolted to the earth. High above the chaos on the streets, there's a strange stillness. Commercial airplanes don't plummet. They were never being pressed down by gravity in the first place. They float in stable forward motion, their engines pushing them through an atmosphere that has suddenly lost its weight. On the highways, the situation is more volatile. Cars maintain their forward speed, but with zero weight pressing their tires into the asphalt, the friction that allows for steering and braking is gone. A single steering twitch sends multi-ton vehicles into silent sideways spins. Water systems break their own intuitive rules. Rivers and fountains stop flowing downhill, instead pooling into wobbling floating spheres that catch the light in midair. The danger is highest in environments built for precision. Operating rooms and factories become immediate hazards as unsecured surgical tools, molten materials, and heavy machinery drift into unpredictable collision paths. Human civilization relies on a constant downward pull to keep sharp, heavy, and dangerous objects in their designated places. Then, the 10 seconds expire. Gravity reclaims the planet instantly. Every person and object that gained height over the last 10 seconds falls at the exact same moment. Weightlessness was merely the setup. The actual catastrophe happens in a single microsecond, as 10 seconds of accumulated height are traded for a violent, simultaneous collision with the ground. Within minutes, hospitals face a wave of blunt force and fall-related injuries that scale across the entire global population at once. Emergency response networks freeze. Protocols exist for earthquakes and hurricanes, but no disaster manual contains a chapter on a localized failure of physics. As billions of people pick themselves off the floor, they instinctively reach for their phones. The sheer volume of simultaneous calls to check on families chokes global communication networks within seconds. Between the medical emergencies and the dead phone lines, the first cracks in our global infrastructure are starting to show. As the first day unfolds, a hidden catastrophe emerges inside the global supply chain. Logistics warehouses rely on massive vertically stacked pallets that aren't bolted to the floor. The instant weight returned, those unsecured towers shifted and collapsed into the aisles. This warehouse bottleneck halts just-in-time distribution grids as trucks can no longer be loaded. The disruption ripples from the warehouse to the grocery store and finally to the dinner table. A single day's suspension creates shortages that take months to untangle. Modern civilization was built on the assumption that gravity is a constant. One 10-second disruption proves how much our survival depends on that single silent variable. We cannot guarantee gravity won't glitch again, so we change how we engineer our world. Global building codes shift. It is no longer enough to design structures to support weight. New laws require them to anchor it. A wave of retrofitting sweeps through cities. Mechanical fail-safes and steel tether lines are drilled into skyscrapers and historical landmarks, physically fastening the urban world to the crust of the earth. This creates a new psychological baseline. People begin instinctively checking the security of hanging light fixtures and loose shelving before entering a room. A private wariness that becomes a permanent part of the human experience. Society doesn't respond by building bigger or more complex structures. We rebuild humbler and more tightly tethered. Gravity is the silent mechanic of our reality. It keeps water in the pipes, the air in the atmosphere, and your home on its foundation, performing billions of essential tasks every second without a single failure. 10 seconds was long enough to reveal how much of our world is held together by a force we only notice when it stops. Right now, as you sit watching this, you can feel that force pressing your feet to the floor and anchoring you to your chair. We live our lives on a floor we simply assume will never move. We've learned that safety is less about the strength of our walls and more about our trust in the force that holds them there.